I don't see it online yet. I'd like to call the meeting of March 14th to order. It is still 6 p.m. All of those, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any amendments to the agenda?
Can we move 4.3 to in front of 4.1?
Sure. Anybody else? We'll make different arrows. Any other amendments? I need a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll move. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. I need a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of February 8th.
Move. Second.
Any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I'll turn it over to Mr. Dowson for our nightlight presentation.
Although she couldn't be here tonight, I wanted to publicly recognize Laura Russin for her work as our substitute call service manager. She handles all of our staff absences, our leaves, professional development days, and she does all of these on top of her duties as a teacher assistant. And despite the challenges of scheduling substitutes, we have not lost a minute of instructional time this year due to a sub shortage, and I think that is a testament to Laura's diligence, her dedication. She's truly an asset to our instructional team, and her work, I know the principals can echo and department leaders can echo the work that she has done to provide substitute coverage for our district, and I wanted to publicly recognize her and thank her for that work, because her phone starts ringing at 6 a.m. and by 7:30 we are fully staffed, and that's amazing. So I wanted to publicly recognize her and present her with the board's nightlight for this month.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That moves us to 4.3, which is the solar eclipse presentation from Joe Aiken. Hi. Welcome.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to be talking back here just so I can control things.
You'll have to look directly at the presentation.
What's that?
Can we look directly at the presentation?
You might get the glasses on first. So thank you for inviting me. It's just tell a little bit about the solar eclipse coming up. So if you have been living under a rock and didn't know that this was happening, it's going to be happening in pretty much less than 26 days from now. And it's coming up very quickly. Now, there's only been 5 total solar eclipses that hit New York State in the last 1,000 years. This is a very special event, a once-in-a-lifetime event. I just have some quotes I want to read here. The last one that happened, just real quick, was in 1806. And it was June 16th of 1806 that came across upstate New York. We had a 3-minute-and-42-second eclipse. James Fenneman Cooper, actually visiting his family in Cooperstown at the time, made this quote: "At 12 minutes past 11, the moon stood revealed in its great distinctness, a vast black orb so nearly obscuring the sun that the face of the great luminary was entirely and absolutely darkened, though a corona of rays of light appeared beyond. The gloom of night was upon us, a breathless intensity of interest was felt by all." So this is the path of, there's one that happened 8 years ago, of course. That was the last one. Before that, 1806. 2017, here's the 2024 path, and you see right up to upstate New York, and you have to get within this yellow highlighted path. The closer you are to that red line in the center, the more totality you will see. For those who have seen, who said, "Oh, I've seen a solar eclipse," Unless you went in 2017, you did not. You saw what we call a partial eclipse. Now, there was one in 1970 that came right across the eastern seaboard, came right up the east coast. But again, you had to be pretty much in the Atlantic Ocean to see it. 2024, again, do not miss this. And I'm going to kind of explain the difference between partial and totality, just kind of give you a sense of all. Over the next 100 years, these are all the eclipse paths that are going to be coming across the United States. The next one to hit New York State, roughly 2079. And it's going to be getting closer to New York City and the Catskills. So we have, you missed this one, yeah, it's 2079. It's the next one. This is New York State. There is one that goes across the United States in 2045. But it's mostly the southern part of the United States from California down to Florida. So you see those paths. If you go to earthsky.org, you can actually find this map as well. All right, so here's a picture that Tony and Amy took, and I can see this is the sky darkening. Now, during a partial eclipse, you get some darkening in the sky, but not like a total. You see stars come out. The wind picks up. Temperature drops about 20 degrees. Weird things happen during totality. You get nocturnal animals stir about. Birds fall silent. When we say the wind picks up, you feel this cold blast. Temperature drops about 10 to 20 degrees. And then you can make like little mini eclipses, like here's through a pair of glasses. You can actually project eclipses. This is what a partial looks like. This is actually what we call an annular eclipse. As you see when you hear that ring of fire from the sun, that's what this is creating here. Basically moves just a little bit further away, and so it doesn't cover the sun exactly. We had this back in October. For Hamilton, it was cloudy that day. We got to see it for about 3 seconds through the clouds. We got about 20%. Nothing. Partial is nothing. And it's just kind of cool. Those come around a little bit more often. You can have eclipses every 6 months or every 5 months. I'm going to skip all the numbers because there's short time here. But here, a really cool picture. This is leaves casting shadows of mini eclipses. Thousands of shadows cast by the leaves of trees. And you can see them projected everywhere during the eclipse. Darkness grows not in the east, but from the west. It's flipped because the moon's shadow comes from the west. And so you'll see this darkness approaching from the horizon if you're in that path. Shadow bands appear right before totality. These are rays of light casting through particles of air. The particles are different densities, and so you get these kind of wavy patterns appearing everywhere. If you look at it on like walls of buildings, it's the best place to see those. And it's really a spectacular sight. And let me see if I can get this going. So this is what we call baby's beads. And let's see if I can follow it right there. This is kind of a close-up of a simulated eclipse. All these little, that's the light of the sun casting through the mountains and valleys of the moon. And you can kind of see it on the edge. And the light gets broken up. And this is the last bit of sunlight. And then you have what's called the diamond ring, which is the very last bit of light. Then darkness happens. And then you get totality. The hottest part of the sun, the outer atmosphere called the corona, appears, and it's like this wispy, I really can't explain it because it's just an all-inspiring moment. I'm going to play some reactions in just a bit. If you have binoculars, you actually take your glasses off at this point. So up until totality, you keep the glasses on because you want to protect your eyes. And if you're anywhere else other than the totality path, you have to have your glasses on the whole time. For this, well, we're going, taking 200 students to Hobart William Smith from Colgate on 4 buses. We're traveling west, partnering with the astronomers there. But for our 2 minutes and 20 seconds that we'll get totality, we'll take our glasses off during that time, and you can actually look at it, because you don't want to miss this part. Where the sun once is turns completely black. That white, wispy corona appears about 5 to 10 radii out from it. And it just appears as this white, wispy kind of phenomenon in the sky. The star, you can actually see some of the brightest stars. You'll see planets. There's actually an alignment of planets happening at the same time. There's also a comet that will possibly be visible. It's brightening right now. It's actually visible now with the unaided eye. I saw it 2 nights ago. With pair of binoculars, you can really see it's a big comet just in the northwest. It will be very close to the sun on April 8th. So that might also, you might be able to see it. These pink things are prominences. You can actually see them. The sun right now is very active. So the corona is going to be, that white wisp is going to be kind of huge and very twisty, if you will. And you'll see lots of prominences around the edge of the sun. And if we're lucky, we might even see coronal mass ejection or a flare. Now, that diamond ring looks like that. That's the last bit of light we call. And so the whole thing, once it happens, it goes in reverse. And so it takes roughly, it's going to start roughly 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Totality happens around 3:08 to 3:21 is actually when totality really begins at Hobart William Smith. And then about 4:30 it's over. So you get about 2 hours of this display. So bring food, because one thing that you're going to have to worry about is traffic, getting there and getting home. Going there shouldn't be too bad. It's coming home is going to be bad, because everybody's going to be leaving at once right after. So wait till 5 o'clock, wait till maybe 6 or even 7 to leave wherever you are. But you want to get in that path. And that path is just a small path on 150 miles wide. And here is the difference. Sorry. That's the difference between 99%, which is what we will get here in Hamilton, and 100%. 99%, you get a tiny sliver. The sky doesn't darken a whole lot. You don't see the stars, you don't see the corona, you won't see that diamond ring or shadow bands. You'll just get basically a nice crescent sun, which is still cool to look at, but it's like going to a Taylor Swift concert the day after. That's the difference. And so just a little science here, just talking about why we even have eclipses. Why don't we have eclipses every month? Because we know the moon goes around the Earth once a month. You got to remember, the moon's orbit is tilted about 5 degrees to the Earth's orbit. And so sometimes the moon is higher, sometimes it's lower. And so the shadow of the moon will actually miss the Earth. And so we have to be right in line with the sun, earth, moon. And that happens about every 6 months, about every 177 days, hence semester. It's called traces, it's the semester gets the same from, and it's every 6 months. Other cultures actually figured this out. They found this pattern. I won't get into that yet. I'll talk a little bit about that on that Monday, the 25th. Kind of get into a little math there. But both the Mayans and Babylonians all figured out that pattern and could predict eclipses for thousands of years. And so this just kind of shows a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so there you see the kind of Earth, Moon, it's kind of hard to see, so this is meant for the dome. But here you can kind of see that Earth, Moon lined up, and the moon's shadow cast out in space just basically draws a pencil mark on the Earth. And that's why it's only 150 miles wide, so you got to be within, again, that path. For upstate New York, it's between Syracuse and Buffalo, if you go west. Up north, between Watertown and Plattsburgh. So anywhere pretty much in the Adirondacks, if you get kind of north, Little Falls, kind of on the southern edge, Lake Placid's right in the center line. So that's where you definitely want to go. So reactions, words to describe this totality, awe-inspiring. The word sublime has come up quite a bit. If you were at Tony's talk last week, we had Tony Avini up at the planetarium. He talked about the word sublime. And here, well, let's see if I can get these reactions to play. Help if I unmute it. I'm playing it.
This is what the word unbelievable was made for. Look at it, Justin. Oh my God, I gave him your eyes.
Kind of shaky right now. Unbelievable. You know, we've been hearing about how it's truly a once-in-a-lifetime occurrence, and it absolutely lived up to the billing.
You just got to
10 away. Totality. But this time, hard to explain.
So I think that kind of gives you an idea and kind of the reactions here. And here's one more. And that's very important, except during totality. Take the glasses off, only during totality. So in this, you can actually see how dark it really gets. It hasn't had totality yet. So I think people are excited. And no one's probably more excited than this guy. I think he very much is the way to blind right there. Because it is a fantastic experience. And not only humans experience this, animals do as well. There's stories of bees kind of scurrying about right at near darkness, and they all try to get in a hive at the same time, right when totality happens. And then once totality is happening, there's not a bee in sight. They're all inside their hive. Other animals, chickens come home to roost. There's a whole story about, I believe, Edison being attacked by chickens because he was in a chicken coop wanting to photograph the eclipse, and they all came back home during totality, and they all attacked him. So that's sort of at the time. But even, let's see, chimps at the Yerkes Primate Center in Atlanta, talking about they were kind of, when the sky darkened, they all got kind of riled up, climbed to the highest point, and even one of them put their hand towards the eclipsing sun in the sun's direction. Okay, but I gotta skip this over this next part, just talking about, I'll talk more about cultural perspectives on the 25th when I talk to the entire school. So the point is, you gotta go see it. It's a once-in-a-lifetime event. Again, the next one coming through New York State, 2079. I don't think I'll be here at that point. I'll try. 99, I don't know, it might be a little hard. But yeah, so any questions?
Does where you are in that middle line, if you're not right on the red line, does it just affect the amount of time that you're in
Yes.
totality? Okay.
Yeah, if you're on the edge, you'll get seconds.
Like
The closer to the middle line, the center line, like normally Rochester, they get about 3.5 minutes.
Okay.
And I thought I put one of those in. Sorry, it's all about mine, the cultures, the eat eclipses, talking about merchandising. And last, I wanted to talk about this eclipse safety. You got to get the right glasses. I have glasses for every kid, every student, teacher, staff at Hamilton. I'll be bringing them on the 25th. So everybody will get glasses. If you want more, I have plenty of extra, so just let me know. And then, but you got to make sure that you show the ISO on them and get, there's a number 123, or 132, 123. I'll read the number in just a second. It's on the back of those glasses that I brought for you guys too. And then real quick, you can actually project eclipses. So if you don't have the glasses, use a colander. You can actually see lots of eclipses. Even a Ritz cracker works. You can use pretty much a pinhole. Just take a cardboard box with a pinhole and hold it up to the sun and line it up, and you'll be able to see the eclipse experience. So there's that path. And so, we're down here. So Syracuse is fully in, pretty much the entire city of Syracuse. Fayetteville is just outside the line. I believe they're having stuff at stadium, the APT Bank Stadium. They'll get about a minute and a half at total. Rochester gets about 3.5 minutes. So,
What
that's usually
about,
it.
we were looking at Pulaski and Watertown.
Well, yeah. So Watertown gets about 3.5. They're
Oh,
here
that's
just-
great. That's
Yeah,
big.
Plattsburgh also gets about 3.5. Yeah. Yeah, they're right in the center line. So that would be a good spot too. Okay.
Thank you, Joe.
All right. Appreciate it.
Will my kids fall asleep during totality also?
What's that?
Will my kids fall asleep during totality?
They might fall asleep heading up to it, but waking up is allowed. They only stay awake for 2.5 minutes.
Joe, thank you for coming in.
All right.
And for coming back to teach the students about it as well.
Absolutely.
It'll be great for them to have some
Something to be a
exposure.
little bit.
And you're doing one at the library too, right?
Yes, and that same day, actually, that afternoon at 5 o'clock, I'll be at the library.
Okay.
And then, I'm also doing a talk for the Madison Lane Apartments.
Cool.
Great, so. And then we also, just a little plug, sorry, Wednesdays and Fridays, we have free shows at the planetarium, at the Visualization Lab at Colgate. We're showing a show on the eclipse called Totality. So you can always come to that as well. And we hand out glasses during that time as well.
Starting tomorrow?
Yeah, it's been going for the last month. And so Wednesdays, Fridays at 6:30. Thank you.
Great.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it.
Now on to the next really exciting presentation. I turn things over to Scott Budelman. Oh, sorry, never mind, not yet. See, we switch things around. I turn it over to Mark
Okay.
for a future presentation, and then Scott.
Yeah, so I just want to recognize a couple things. I'll start with some recent extracurricular events that we've had at Hamilton. So if you were around last weekend, you may have seen the production of Mamma Mia, so congratulations to Ms. Bourne and then all of the adults that are involved in that. Morgan Larson plays a huge role in putting all that together. And then the kids themselves just put on a great show, so it was a fun weekend for everybody there. We also had some basketball going on that weekend as well. And so, next I'll talk about basketball. So the boys basketball, they finished their season with a tough loss to Waterville in the sectional final. So they kind of exceeded some preliminary expectations this year. Their final record was 20-4. And at the last game, Drew Baker and Luke Jackson were named to the Class C sectional all-tournament team. And then girls varsity basketball, also had a very successful season, and they ended up defeating West Canada Valley to become this year's Class C Section 3 champions. And then they moved on to sectional play, lost a tough game to Moravia over at the OCC Center. And Logan Langle was named tournament MVP, and Colin Kelly was named to the Class C sectional all-tournament team. That was the previous game, the Section 3 final match that they won. And then we had some teacher recognitions as well. Earlier this month, Ms. Reynolds was named to the AFERD Central North Zone Secondary PE Teacher of the Year. So AFERD is the New York State Association for Health, PE, Recreation, and Dance. And she was recognized at a ceremony on March 5th. And then I may have mentioned this in either board report earlier in the year, but Mrs. Chamberlain was awarded New York Agriculture in the Classroom Teacher of the Year earlier this year. But she recently found out that she moved on to National Teacher of the Year for Agriculture in the Classroom, and she will be recognized in June in Utah. So they're going to bring her out to Utah and have a big recognition for all the work that she's done in the classroom, incorporating agriculture and hands-on activities for the students, and that's being recognized by this group. And they're in partnership with Cornell Cooperative Extension, NICEAD, Department of Agriculture, Markets, and the New York Farm Bureau.
Well, congratulations to all. That's wonderful. All right, now I mean it. Now, Scott, I will let you take the podium.
Okay,
And Lisa?
right here.
Yes.
Maybe I'll move the glasses.
Here, I can take those.
Thanks. Thank you, everybody, for giving us a few minutes to talk to you a little bit about BOCES. It's good to see you again. Before I jump in, I just want to thank Matt and Bill for their regional leadership. It's great having them at our superintendent and business official tables, and then also Michelle, of course, for her service to the BOCES board.
Thank you.
I am Scott Budelman. I'm the district superintendent of Madison and Oneida BOCES. And this is Lisa Decker. She's the deputy superintendent of BOCES. And today, I'd just like to try to walk you through a few things. First of all, just give you an overview of the BOCES structure, because we're similar to a school district, but not exactly the same. I'll talk to you a little bit about BOCES services, and then Lisa will talk to you about the budget, the administrative budget for this year. So if you take a look at your folder, on the right-hand side, there's an organization chart. And I think it may have walked some of you through this before, but for those of you who haven't heard it, it's probably a good idea. Take a look. It's a little bit like this. So BOCES is set up pretty similar to a school district. You know, we have an instructional leader. His name is Matt Williams. We have a business leader. Her name is Lisa Decker. And superintendent of schools, Scott Budelman. We also have a technology leg to our organization. So you can see there's a sort of a third division. And that's the Regional Information Center led by Heather Mahoney. Now, the Regional Information Center services school districts not simply the 9 school districts within the Madison BOCES, but also, well, a total of 50 school districts across 4 BOCES. So, although there are 37 BOCES across the state, there are only 12 RICs. And your BOCES, the Madison Oneida BOCES, is one of those RICs. So it services Herkimer BOCES, Oneida BOCES, Jefferson Lewis BOCES, and Madison Oneida BOCES. So that's one difference between a BOCES and a school district. Another difference is, frankly, my role. So I have 2 titles technically. One is CEO, which is technically, it's very similar to a superintendent of schools for the BOCES. So I have some of the operational responsibilities of overseeing the BOCES. But the other is the district superintendent role. So the district superintendent role is a state job. I'm actually employed by the commissioner. She's my supervisor. I get evaluated by her. I get to meet with her every month. One of the things that happens is all the district superintendents from the BOCES from around the state go to Albany once a month, and we meet with her for 2 or 3 days. She shares with us her initiatives. We come back, we roll them out to the superintendents. They trickle out to the business officials, the building principals, school counselors, all of those folks. Folks like Bill will give me their input, and I sort of take that back to the commissioner. So we're kind of a liaison between schools and the state education department. So that function's a little bit different than a school superintendent function. Now, interestingly, that function actually existed 30, 40 years before the BOCES existed. So the district superintendent role is very old. The BOCES came along. They thought it was a good idea to have schools cooperate through a cooperative board of cooperative educational services. They got done with that project. They said, who are we going to put in charge? Oh, we'll put the district superintendents in charge. So it's sort of an added duty. So that's just an overview of the BOCES. If you take a look at the structure of the BOCES, if you take a look at the next document in your folder, it's 2 sides. One side says taxes. I like to think of this as our revenue side of the document. No BOCES taxes. We do not have the authority to tax, so we don't tax the public. That's not a revenue source for us. Next line says state aid. We also do not receive state aid. So we're fairly self-sustaining. Really, the primary source of our revenue, we get grants sometimes, are school districts. So we're market-driven, right? We don't provide things unless we're asked to provide those things. In fact, we're not even permitted to provide things unless at least 2 schools ask for them. So we really are a cooperative. We don't have any other revenue source. Going down the page, you can see that we're not permitted to maintain a general fund balance. Most school business officials will tell you, rightfully so, the law restricts fund balances in schools too severely. We don't have one at all. Audits, we're subject to the same audit requirements that public school districts are subject to. Staffing, we're a much more dynamic organization because school districts choose what to participate in every year. Our staff shrinks and grows and shifts depending on what schools sign up for.
If you think you can do something on your own better, then do it better on your own. But if you think you want to partner, go through BOCES. The school districts shift those choices every year, rightfully so. On the other side of the document, you can see this is just how the service structure goes. We provide service when 2 or more school districts request. As I said before, we're not permitted to do it if people aren't asking, and we're not permitted to do it unless 2 people are asking. School districts independently decide to purchase BOCES services. Your decision what services to purchase is May 1st of every year. This is a very collaborative process, so what happens is every fall we assemble teams of superintendents. They come in, they look at our budgets, our proposed budgets line by line. We build those service budgets based on the assertions they make about their anticipated participation. So if Mr. Dowsland says, I think I'm going to have 5 kids here, I'm going to send 10 kids there, I'm going to take 2 kids back over here, we build the budget on those assumptions, and we hope it's pretty accurate, although it's going to shift. And then by May 1st, we kind of lock in the rates. They make decisions, they commit by May 1st, and then we're good for the year. So once you sign up, you're in for the year, you can get out the next year. It's just a year-long contract. So that's how we anticipate need. It's collaborative. Our priorities are always to address educational needs. The one thing I like to think about when I think about BOCES is market-driven, right? I mean, we're basically responsive to the market, but we don't have a profit incentive. And that's because at the end of the year, any funds that we take in from school districts that don't go used, schools drop services or whatever, they go back to the school districts because we don't have a fund balance. Looking at the next document, we call it our partnership document. It's just an overview of the services that Hamilton specifically participates in right now. Starting at the top, you can see a description of secondary programs. I think I may have shared with you last year or the year before. We used to have divisions at our BOCES where we had special education, we had sort of a silo special education program, we had an alternative education program, we had a CTE program. We've reorganized the programs at BOCES so that we basically have a high school, a middle school, and an elementary school. So our director of secondary programs is Jim Weaver. We've organized it that way for a variety of reasons. One reason is it's an initiative for equity, right? So we're making sure to mix kids up, with their abilities or disabilities or whatever their skill set is, they all have the same opportunities. The other reason is that it makes it more understandable to school districts, right? You think about the world in terms of secondary, primary, and elementary education. Also, parents can navigate BOCES much better because we have a high school, middle school, elementary school. So if you look at the document, just halfway down, there's some statistics about Hamilton specifically. You can see your 2023 CTE completion rate. So last year you had 10 students who were what we call 2-year completers. We don't give graduation certificates, school districts do, but we give CTE completion certificates. So 10 students were 2-year completers, 7 students received a technical endorsement. So technical endorsement is sort of a special recognition. Students who get that have passed a technical assessment, they've submitted a portfolio, and they've completed a senior project. Then you can see New Visions, 4 students, and VTP Pathway, 1 student. Dropping just below that, you can see the placement statistics for those students. So 64% of the Hamilton students who went through CTE are pursuing post-secondary education now. 29% are employed related to their CTE program, and 7% are employed in an unrelated program. One great benefit of CTE is that kids get to try things out without a lot of risk. It doesn't cost money, right? So sometimes kids get into a program and they learn a lot of great skills, but they decide that's not what they want to do for their career, right? Or they jump into college and they do something else, but they still have a skill in their back pocket. And increasingly, especially with the Blue Ribbon Commission's recommendations to the Board of Regents about graduation measures, those are skills that are going to translate into credits that help kids work towards graduation. Looking at the right-hand side of the document, you can see some current year statistics. You currently have 35 students in CTE, 2 students in career exploration, and 1 student in Career Development Academy. Just below that, you can see the Honor Society statistics. 18 students in high honor, 6 students in Honor Society, and 5 honorable mention. And then below that, you can see the names of the specific students who are in the Hamilton National Technical Honor Society. So our Honor Society is very similar to yours. And those are the students who are recognized. I won't walk you all the way through this document, but if you just turn to page 3, so that's the back, that's the front of the very next page. Description of our middle level programs is essentially our middle school. Owen Moranville is our director of middle school. Turning to the next page, elementary programs, information about that. And Dr. Amanda Hopkins is our elementary school director in early childhood initiatives. The following page describes staff and curriculum development. So this is the team that works to do professional development for teachers region-wide. This is an opportunity when one school district brings in a speaker or consultant with respect to teacher development, other schools can jump into that and get aid for it. The director of that program is Ed Rinaldo. And then at the bottom of that same page, School Library System Services. So we have the Collective Library Association that works through the BOCES. The director of that program is Sue LeBlanc. And then on page 7, Printing and Public Relations, the director of Public Relations is Satya Kalali. And then the RIC, as I described before, a very expansive entity in this region. The director is Heather Mahoney. Page 8, school board policy development. So we have attorneys and folks working on school board policies. Christine Kuipers pretty much heads that up. And then in labor relations and legal services, Justin Murphy is our school attorney or chief attorney. And then Tara Pawlowski is in charge of business office services. So there's a menu of services available for business services. I'll walk you through a few of those in a little bit. The next document is just a line-by-line listing of all those services. It's less of a narrative, but just a listing of it. The numbers are called COSER numbers. That means things to school districts and BOCES. After that, just highlighting a couple of Hamilton students who are involved in CTE programs recently. So we have a larger document. You're going to know these students much better than I do. You can see Lauren Baker has been highlighted for the class of 2023. According to the narrative, she's always wanted to be a chef. She participated in our Advanced Culinary Experience program, the ACE program. So at BOCES, we have Culinary 1 and Culinary 2, and this is for juniors and seniors respectively. But for the students who really want to take that extra step, instead of going to Culinary 2, they go to the Advanced Culinary Experience. We used to call it, to be honest, we called it like a master chef program or something once. When we were first starting, we called it that. But then one of our instructors came in and said, "Sorry, you can't call it that. I'm not even a master chef. That's an actual thing." So it's called the Advanced Culinary Experience. Anyway, she's participated in Skills USA. She's a National Technical Honor Society member. She's received the BOCES Education Foundation Scholarship for Employability. She received the Excellence in Achievement Award. She's at the Culinary Institute of America now studying. And she comes back, we really love this, she comes back and talks to other kids about her experiences at college. And then, I don't know if I'll say her name right, Emily Nunes-Schwaninger. She's in cosmetology. She was in her junior year, she received the Excellence in Achievement Award. She's been in the National Technical Honor Society, high honor roll, and she got the award for outstanding growth. And she's at the Finger Lakes College now, and also plays soccer. And then finally, Dominic Niles, he participated in 10th grade through Foundations of CTE. So that's a program where students before grade 11 can actually rotate through a variety of programs and kind of try out CTE. That's a program that actually, I think, came about because of a Hamilton request probably a decade or 15 years ago. So thank you for that. Dom is in early childhood education. He's a multi-sport athlete. And interestingly, because we have embedded that program at Stockbridge, early childhood education program, he's also a mentee to the Ridge Valley physical education teacher, because that's where his program is housed. Increasingly, we're putting programs into school districts because, I think I've shared before, for many, many years, more than 40%, closer to 50% of all juniors and seniors have come to BOCES for CTE, and that's been static for years. We want to make sure that kids have those programs in their home school districts too, and we're fortunate in this BOCES region that we have a relatively small geographical footprint, and as schools sort of shrink, because your populations are shrinking, I think Lisa's going to talk to you a little bit about that later. We're trying to put programs out where kids are, and we're trying not to leave buildings just empty in our region. So just a couple of highlights for the kids in our region. The next document, I won't spend a lot of time on it. I think maybe we'll talk to you a little bit about it the year prior. These are the blue ribbon, a summary of the Blue Ribbon Commission's recommendations for changes in graduation measures. So as you may have heard, I'm sure you've heard from your team, the Board of Regents is considering a little less emphasis on Regents examinations, more specifically opening up a variety of pathways for kids to graduate high school, for kids to prove that they know what they know. It's a great thing for kids who are invested in hands-on learning. It's a great thing for CTE. They have not been adopted yet by the Board of Regents, but these are the committee's recommendations to the Board of Regents for those changes. So when you have a chance, I encourage you to look through that. Next document actually is a postcard. This is our Propel program. It's a partnership we have with Mohawk Valley Community College, a great opportunity for kids. So what happens with Propel is a student can get their high school diploma from Hamilton. They get their CTE completion certificate from BOCES, and then they also complete a year of MB before they graduate high school. So they get out of high school and they've only got 1 year left of MB and they have their associate's degree. It's a partnership with Mohawk Valley Community College. Next document, actually it's a book, I've got a few extra, but this is just an overview of all of our CTE programs that we currently offer. You can download these off our website or print them off or just read them. We put them in book form just so that you can take a look. If you look halfway into the book, they're alphabetized. I apologize, there's no page numbers. It's not really a book, they just assembled it for this purpose. Culinary arts. This is something that folks are a lot of participants. If you go to the BOCES annual meeting, you'll see all those kids line up and cook the food. We have Culinary 1, Culinary 2, and the ACE experience. So all of the programs in this book have the same sort of general format. You can see at the top, there's an overview. It says students are prepared for careers in hospitality, hotels, restaurants, resorts, fast food establishments, the cruise industry, theme parks, and other industries. And then units of study include food service management, introduction to baking, stock soups and sauces, nutritional science, meat, poultry, and seafood, desserts and baked goods, food service math, and then a list of career options available. And then course credits, most of the way down the page, 3 units of CTE, a unit of English, math, and science each, a unit of government and economics, and a half a unit of career and financial management. And at the bottom, true to form with the Blue Ribbon Commission's recommendations to the Board of Regents, there are a lot of hands-on experience opportunities, there are labs, there are lectures, traditional experiences. So kids get up and they get around, they get moving, and they learn a lot and they get high school credit. And then on the other side, you can see some of the features and benefits of CTE, leadership opportunities available through CTE, and then a list of colleges that we have articulation agreements with, so they can get college credit when they participate. So I encourage you to look through this book. There are a lot of great programs, electrical HVAC, foundations, as I described. There's also sports management, which is a program that we just recently embedded in Canastota with the National Boxing Hall of Fame. So that's another opportunity for students to try out some diverse opportunities. Next document, two-sided. Just a quick listing of all the dual credit that students receive when they participate through BOCES, the opportunities for dual credit, they get started on college. The brochure after that describes the Regional Information Center. Heather Mahoney is our director of the Regional Information Center, as I said, servicing 4 BOCES, 50 school districts. She's also the chair of all the RIC directors throughout the state, so she kind of heads up the 12 RICs. They provide a lot of infrastructure support to schools. They do a lot of work for the commissioner, and it's a nice thing to have in nearby Hamilton. Next document is just an overview of our business services that we provide. So there's a lot of sort of behind-the-scenes work that the business office does for school districts, so that leaders like Matt can do their work at home, the Hamilton home. So for example, flexible spending services, the Affordable Care Act compliance, there's the Obamacare compliance requirements that we help schools with, cooperative bidding, something you take part in, central business office services like payroll and ledger accounting, state reporting, and then Medicaid data entry and reimbursement. And a few. After that, labor relations and policy services. So as I indicated before, I think we employ 4 or 5 school attorneys through our labor relations service, and they provide policy services. They also do they do labor relations, sort of day-to-day personnel work for school districts. They negotiate labor contracts, but they also do some legal work. Never ever give up your outside counsel. It's important to have a school attorney who works for a private law firm. They come in on particular things, have more than one, but there is some work that you don't need to pay $300 an hour for. I think the rate that these guys are charging is more in the range of $120 an hour. So Turning to the next document, this is an overview of our school communications service. This is a growing service. A few years ago, not too many schools participated, but now Camden, Canastota, Madison, Oneida, Rome, Stockbridge, Mount Markham, and BOCES participates because, like other institutions in the state, just like social service programs, just like churches, just like Boy Scouts, all these institutions seem to be on the decline, and schools have to step up and fill in the gap when those institutions decline. So too is the newspaper industry, right? It's hard to get good information, and so it's increasingly important that school districts have a voice, otherwise they get pummeled, right? So the school communication service. And then the next two documents are just relate to our staff development service. So this again is the service that provides professional development to teachers. First document is just an overview of the service. The second is a two-sided document that has a listing of all those, the winter 2024 and spring 2024 course offerings for teachers. And then finally, just two important events I want to highlight before I turn it over to Lisa. The first is our SBI Student Awards Showcase. So the three BOCES in our region, that would be the Madison BOCES, that's us, the Oneida BOCES out near New Hartford, and the Herkimer BOCES in Herkimer County. We work together as a school board collaborative, so all the school board members kind of have an association. I think sometimes you folks attend some of those meetings. So every third year, there's a student showcase in each of those BOCES. Last year was Herkimer BOCES. This year it's at Madison and Oneida BOCES. So all the students from the region, every school from the region is going to submit or have students at this showcase. And so we encourage you to come. It's actually a week from yesterday, right? It's the 20th. So that's something we encourage you to attend. There'll be some food available. You can still register. And then also, I know you folks attend this, and thanks for doing that. Come again this year. Little postcard reminding you that our annual meeting. Well, I promise we'll go back to the budget. It won't be as long as this night. It'll be a very quick and abbreviated version of it. But this is where the culinary kids come out and play. We have kids from school districts engaging in the entertainment. They provide us with entertainment. It's a good, quick night, hour and a half or so. So I hope to see you there. Any questions about the program, the BOCES as a whole? Okay. And we'll let Lisa walk you through the numbers. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Good evening, everybody. On the left-hand side of your folder, you'll see the proposed administrative and capital budget. So I'll start with the blue sheet, which itemizes our administrative budget. So historically, our treasurer has been split between our administrative budget. 50% of this individual's salary and benefits were in this budget. This individual also served another role at the BOCES, serves another role, and that's overseeing the central business office. So Scott mentioned management services, CBO. This is a service that we provide that Hamilton happens to participate in, and it provides payroll, accounting, accounts payable, some auditing support, and leadership in school business accounting. So this individual has been with the BOCES since 1981 and has recently announced her retirement. So we're anticipating difficulty in recruiting for that position, to find somebody who, in essence, speaks two languages, speaks the school district finance language and the BOCES finance language, similar in many ways, but different as well, different revenue streams, different reporting requirements. So we're proposing that we put a full-time treasurer in the administrative budget. So we'll recruit for somebody to take over that main treasurer's position and have a full-time person in this particular budget. So in addition to the BOCES budget, so our budget landed last year, general fund at about $100 million last year. This person is also responsible for our Madison Oneida Herkimer Healthcare Consortium. So it's a consortium of 12 school districts and libraries to provide healthcare benefits, as well as our Madison Oneida Herkimer Workers' Comp Consortium, as well as our Adult Ed Consortium, which is a partnership with our neighboring BOCES at New Hartford, Oneida BOCES. So that's a whole other set of books that this person is responsible for. So we're proposing in the CBO budget to elevate one of our existing members or existing staff to take over that leadership role, so there's some savings over in the CBO budget. So the other staffing in this budget are, our central office staff, so that includes Scott and myself, as well as our support staff and all of our business office staff. Fringe benefits, retirement, health insurance, workers' comp, that's included in this budget as well for those positions. We have a couple line items for equipment, supplies, and software, as well as anticipated interest charges on potential RAND borrowings. Other expenses included are mileage, meeting, workshop expenses for the people who are in this budget, as well as our board members. We are members of NISBA, NISCUS, ASBO, Rural Schools. These are organizations that help us with our advocacy efforts, very important, especially in tough years like this. Contractual expenses include our actuarial study, our IRS compliance, banking fees, OLAS, and School Boards Institute. Legal fees are in this budget, as well as postage and advertising for legal notices. And then down on the bottom, you'll see a section called internal charges. So just as school districts participate in BOCES services, we also pay our share into those services as well. So services like the Flex Plan Administration, labor relations and negotiations, and RIC support for our business office are included in the administrative budget. So the current 23-24 budget for those direct expenses, see on the bottom, is $1,576,639, and the proposed budget for 24-25 is $1,702,343, including that half of the treasurer position. And then on the back for BOCES, we also have to include the expense for the obligation for all of our retiree health insurance. So this is any individual who has retired from the BOCES, that obligation is included here in section B. We have 268 retirees and we're anticipating 24 for next year. So the total budget this year with the retiree health insurance is $6,574,135. Anticipated for next year is $7,290,325. And then Part C shows our revenue sources. So we've been able to be creative and leverage some more interest on our investments with the interest rates being as they are. We have some indirect costs from grants. We've also seen an increase in revenue through our retiree drug subsidy. So that's a revenue that comes into the BOCES for coverage for our retirees that fall in that 55 to 65 age range that get their prescription drugs through the BOCES plan. So we've seen some increase in those revenues. We have the collections in advance, which is an account we worked out with our auditors years ago to set aside 1 year's worth of that retiree health insurance obligation. So you see that revenue completely offsets the expense up above for the retiree health insurance. And then the balance is the distribution among the local components. So the 9 components in the BOCES currently collectively contribute $1,222,502 and propose for next year $1,240,840, or 1.5% change. And then down on the bottom you see how that's distributed across our components. So the first column talks about our WADA, and that's how we distribute the administrative and capital budgets. So our WADA is the resident weighted average daily attendance. So these are attendance figures. This data would be based on, for this upcoming year, based on the prior year, so your 22-23 school year. So that our WADA for the 23-24 regionally is 14,160. Hamilton makes up 581 of that, which converts to a 4.1% share of the region. The dollar share portion would be 50,161. Hamilton's estimated BOCES aid ratio is 65%. The estimated revenue, so you drive aid on those expenses, and this comes in as a revenue to Hamilton of approximately 20,637 for an estimated local share this year of 29,524. And then that same methodology is applied for next year. You see regionally our WADA shrinks from 14,160 to 13,906. Hamilton's our WADA goes from 581 to 569. Still converts to about a 4.1% share. So Hamilton is this year shrinking about as much as we are regionally, so that percent share stays consistent. Dollar share for next year would be $50,772. Estimated aid ratio goes to 62.9. Estimated revenue from the expenses that would come in as a revenue, $19,104, and estimated local share of $31,668 after the revenue is realized. Are there any questions on the budget or the allocation before we move to the next budget? Okay. So on the green sheet, that's our rented capital. So as we embed programs in schools, and we also have been renting facilities in schools for years through our special ed program, our summer school program. We have the Costello Center over in Oneida. So we have rented space. We have a group of superintendents who serve on a committee, a budget committee to determine the rent rates for the upcoming year. So that's the first part of the budget. This year's 23-24 rental component is $193,371. Estimated for 24-25 is $195,211. The second piece of that is the BOCES capital project. So we've been investing in safety and security, HVAC, as well as some space configurations and upgrades. So this year's rent and capital budget total is $1,806,509. Proposed for 24-25 is also $1,806,509, keeping that flat. And then on the bottom, the 23-24 rent capital budget and 24-25 is allocated in a similar manner to the administrative budget. So again, 4.1% share of the region converts to a dollar share this year for Hamilton of $74,125. After the aid is generated, the estimated local share is approximately $25,943. And then for next year, again, 4.1% of the region translates to a dollar share of $73,918. Estimated aid back of $46,494, leaving a local share of $27,424. Any questions on any of the budgets? Good to see you at the showcase and the annual meeting.
I want to thank you guys for the amount of time you put into this. I know for me, this is the third or fourth time I've seen something, which I'm saying because I want people to know that this is a process. As it is in the districts, the BOCES office takes a lot of time and energy to put into making these budgets, and also coming around and sharing with the non-component districts, which is not something that they are required to do, but they do to make sure that we are well informed on the vote that we will take to provide for our students at BOCES. So thank you so much. I appreciate your night being here. Thank you.
Good to see you, thank you.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Lisa.
Appreciate it.
See you soon.
Yes.
Evening of presentations. Next up is Chris.
Nearly so fancy.
Well, that's okay. We have the district report card presentation by Chris Rogers.
So this is really more of an FYI than anything else for the board, of course, and by proxy to the public, everybody watching. This is the time of year when New York State publishes the school report card. They've been doing this for quite a long time now. So you can go on the school or the state's website and see a whole lot of different data about our school and all of the other schools in the state. We have a handy hyperlink to our state report card. If you click district, it's right here under New York State report cards. I've updated it so it goes to the most recent report card, which is last year's data, but you can select data from any year going back to like 2005 maybe to see progress in that area. The state has actually made quite a few updates to this site. It's much more responsive than it used to be, and also it allows you to select the things that you're really interested in, the data points that you really want to look at. It used to be that they would only show you like a PDF of all of the data together, and some of it you really didn't care about. For example, one of the measures that the state collects here at the bottom is our staff qualifications. It tells you how many of our staff are what they consider unqualified or teaching outside of their certification area. We have none, so that probably wouldn't be an interesting data point for anybody to look at in Hamilton. You can select as many as you like, so I'll just sort of select them all here. And then build your report. And then you can look and see all of these different data points for our school. It tells you what our ESSA standing is. ESSA, of course, is the federal program that replaced No Child Left Behind. It's the program that sort of measures accountability for schools. The 4 markers for ESSA accountability are weighted scores on assessments, the success of your ELL students, your chronic absenteeism, and what's the 4th one? There's a 4th measure, but I can't remember what it is. So you can see here, if we've selected all of them, it starts with our performance on middle level exams. These are the 3 through 8 exams. And then as you go further down, it breaks each one into subgroups because the federal government is interested in how these subgroups are doing. Further down, you'll see the combined scores for all of our Regents exams. And then if you go even further down, you can see actual results on individual exams. Rather than show you every single one of these here on the screen, if anybody has any questions about the state report card, I can do my best to answer them.
Chris, will you just explain the 1, 2, 3, and 4 proficiency levels?
Sure.
So you see a 4 for all students to the right.
Yeah, that's the highest score possible on the rubric. So that sort of indicates our standing there. There's a handy dandy glossary here, which is actually kind of crazy. It wants to download a file. But it will tell you all about the formula that they use. Forget it. They use a really strange formula to calculate our weighted scores. So it's basically they take the number of threes, or 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s, and so the higher scores are weighted more. So they take the 1s are not multiplied by anything, the 2s are multiplied by 2, the 3s by 3. So that's how they calculate the weighted scores. The higher scores are worth more in their formula. And then chronic absenteeism is measured by the percentage of students who get the designation that they consider to be chronic, which is 10%, they miss 10% or more of the school days that they're supposed to be in school. We're doing very well with all of these indicators. We're a school in good standing, and you can see our scores if you're interested. I'm sure you've seen them already.
So we have the highest designation in all of our ESSA markers.
We're doing well.
Good job.
We've got a little work to do in some subgroups. We discussed that. We're working on that right now.
As indicated by this report card.
Yeah, so for example, you'll notice that we do a little lower in some of these students with disabilities or economically disadvantaged. These numbers are not unique to us. As we talk to Amy Cones and other data leaders at the MORIC, this looks a lot like everybody's data. But that doesn't mean that we can't work on this.
So like there were, like it's not giving us anything for, based on.
This means we don't have enough.
We just don't have enough for their calculation.
Yes, so you'll notice that In some areas, you see blanks. That's
So
just
how-
because we don't have enough for them to. for
So
them
how
to-
do we measure that data-wise ourselves?
That's a good question, which we can talk about. Find those students and see how they're doing, for sure. But yeah, that's what this means. If there's a blank there, is there's not enough to calculate.
I mean, when I was reading this, am I right? So I think we're on the same subgroup, right? So, like, if you look at Black African American,
Yeah,
that higher score is better.
higher score is better. So, I mean, we can use these here to see that these scores are very good.
So maybe that raw score over several years will give us a better indicator,
That's a good idea, yeah.
right?
But I mean, you can see this against this.
Right,
This subgroup is doing very well.
right. And if that's true over 5 years, then we can have a pretty strong evidence there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Other questions for Chris? No, not yet?
Plenty.
And in, the interest of good presentation night, it is now time to have a presentation from Mr. Crum on budget update. Just we're going to keep it going, see how many presentations we can do in a night. Turn around.
Thank you. Tough acts to follow. I want to give an update tonight with regard to the budget, specifically talking a little bit about the tax levy. March 1st has come and passed, and March 1st is the deadline which we have to calculate and submit our maximum allowable tax levy for the 24-25 school year to the state comptroller's office. So I know the form was on board docs. I do have a couple extra copies if anybody wants to reference those, kind of walk through this. I want to touch on a couple specifics on the side of the small print, and then we'll talk a little bit about the graphical depiction of the history to wrap things up. If you recall back at the February meeting, and the first couple of budget copies we had, we were projecting a maximum allowable increase of 3.98%. Our actual maximum that was submitted was exactly 4.0%. We ended up picking up roughly another $1,500 of exempt increase, if you will, based on the increase in the ERS, the Employer Retirement System employee contribution. So very quickly on the side with small print, my apologies, I wanted to get it all on one page. I understand it's a little bit long. So this is somewhat of a review, but I think it'll be helpful to, I always try to explain this, even if briefly. I think it's a good reminder for us as to how this number is, we get to this number. For 12 years now, the tax cap's been a thing in New York State. It's commonly referred to as the 2% tax cap. If you look through the history, we have yet to have a year where the calculated maximum allowable is exactly 2%. What that 2% is referring to is basically the starting point for every school district in New York State. You start at 2%, the lesser of 2%, or the statewide rate of inflation, if you were the consumer, calculated consumer price index. That number this year was well over 4. So with that, we start at 2. We have had a number of years, a couple, 2021 and 21-22, where that statewide CPI was below or near 1%, so that's where we started as our baseline. Then there are a couple factors that really affect where we go with that 2%. The first being a tax-based growth factor, which is a number that's specific to every school district. And that number is a factor that accounts for new additions to your tax base from one tax year to the next. Generally speaking, this is new brick and mortar additions. So new developments,
new homes. Very important to note, it does not account for increases in assessments. So in a community like ours where the assessments have gone up, that really has no bearing on this tax base growth factor. This is just additions to the tax base, in theory, that spreads out any additional tax liability. So with those two numbers, that kind of gives you your new baseline. That factor for us increased our allowable by roughly 1%. Our additional 1% to get us up to the 4 was because of our capital levy exclusion. So the local share of any debt service that the district has that was previously approved through referendum, so capital projects, bus purchases in our case. So the local share of the debt service on those specific items are exempt from the tax levy calculation, so that gets added on top of that. So you'll see our capital exclusion from 23-24 from 360,000 up to about 437,000, roughly another 1%. That's that layering in of our most recent capital project. Employer contributions to the retirement system, anything in excess of a 2% increase is also exempt. The ERS rate this year is going up 2.1%, so 1/10 of 1% of our ERS wages are also exempt, and that's where that extra 1,500 came in. So that's where we get to the 4%. If you look at the graph, this is a sort of a graphical depiction of what the levy increases have been here in Hamilton since the dawn of the tax cap. And it's hard to believe that we're already 11, 12 years into this. With the exception of 15-16 and 17-18, so those are the 2 years where you see a little note with an arrow. Every other data point, every other year represents a tax levy increase that was at our limit or at our maximum allowable. So for example, in 21-22, that was a year when that statewide CPI was, I think, 0.12%. That was our baseline. When you factored in the debt service, the capital levy exclusion, any tax-based growth locally, 1.6 was our maximum allowable. Typically what you're going to see is most of the allowable increases around the state. If they're low here, they were generally low around the state because of that factor that everybody had to use. Differences usually are caused by difference in the capital levy exclusion. So we have had, with most years, I know there's been some questions from the community offering feedback centered around tax levy. We have pushed the limit and gone out right at the limit with the exception of 2 years. In 2017-18, we went out at 0.99%. Our maximum allowable calculated that year was 1.5. The board at that time felt that it was, I don't know if symbolic is the right word, but it was the optics of going out at under 1 based on those circumstances of that year was what was preferred. I have always pushed to go out at the limit. If you're not doing that, there have been studies that have done now since this tax cap has been in effect, that if you can get your max and you don't, you're really leaving that money on the table and it compounds itself over the years. So that's the 1 year we didn't. It was roughly $30,000, $34,000 below our limit, but so that's gone. You're not able to carry that over. In 2015-16, it was really an anomaly. Our allowable increase was negative, and that's because we had a ton of debt service coming off the books. And as you've heard Bill and I speak through the capital project planning process, we missed a cycle of doing when we should have been, or would have preferred to have been doing a capital project, but we really couldn't because we were going through the merger study. When a bunch of debt service came off, or we would have liked to have been leveling off those debt levels, that led to our allowable being negative. So essentially what happened was, similar to this year, we had federal funds that were expiring. Essentially what we did was we reinvested that money from the budget in 15-16 that was used for those debt service payments, and we used that to cover program and staffing. So not only did we do an override there, but we did a significant override. So, but it was a real anomaly because that allowable increase was actually negative that year. So I know there's been questions about the levy, the calculation, the history. This is for reference. If there's any specific questions regarding the levy calculation for this year or anything historical with regard to the tax levy, be happy to answer that now before moving on. If something comes, feel free to jump in.
I have other questions. Is there more you're gonna?
Yep, a little bit more.
Other parts you want to get to? Okay, so I'll see the questions.
Yep. So, really, not a whole lot to report. Some good news out of Albany in the sense that the Senate and the Assembly have both released details. I know Jen's gonna get mad because this is probably, from her, she's gonna touch on this in her advocacy report. Sorry, Jen. Saw me ask, so So really, Bill was in Albany a couple weeks ago. The general tenor was don't panic, it's early. Not a lot of thinking of the governor's proposal being what's ultimately going to be enacted, and we're seeing more signs of that sort of taking shape. The individual, the House and the Assembly bill reject, I would say, most if not all of the concerning items from the governor's proposal. First and foremost being the cuts to foundation aid. So both of those chambers are suggesting reinstatement of the hold harmless provision. So that would restore everybody to at least the amount of state aid they're receiving in the current year. And I believe each of them with a minimum 3% increase. So again, for perspective, 1% of foundation aid is about $37,000 for us. So not quite 0.5% on the tax levy, but it is significant. So that's good news. For me, I think what's most encouraging is both of those one-house bills look very similar. So what happens now is it's the old 3 people in a room, and the governor and each of the House leaders. The fact that they are similar, I think, will be positive in that process and ultimately having an adopted budget. There are years where the governor's proposal, the Assembly proposal, and the Senate proposal are all very different. You don't really know where you're going to end up. The fact that 2 are similar and more favorable than the one, I think is good for school districts. We're hoping for an on-time budget around April 1st, so we should know more from the state perspective. As far as in-house, not a lot to report, I'm sorry. We had a couple more budget coffees last week. They were better attended than the first round. I think we had probably 6 to 8 people in each the morning and the afternoon, evening session, which was great. Real productive dialogue. We heard feedback from people. I think that the format was favorable. I think it was conducive to dialogue, and it's helpful for us to obtain feedback in that way from people. I think it's helpful for people to hear from us. You know, we still have a lot of unknowns in the building. We're still looking at things. Going back to what we talked about 2 meetings ago, you know, we can't make much headway in the budget when it comes to closing gaps without affecting personnel. Now, does that mean that programs are going to go away? Maybe, maybe not. We are always trying to preserve all of our programming. Does that mean that we can't do things differently with different levels of staffing or different utilization of certain staff members to continue to provide programs? That's what we're looking at. We'll talk more about, you know, after tonight, and I think later tonight we'll talk more about the process, but, you know, we're starting to get closer to crunch time. I know people want answers. Frankly, we don't have them. I want to reiterate, I did this at the coffees last week. If you recall this document that I presented to you folks, was it 2 months ago? The intent behind that document was to show, in a broad sense, the challenges that we're facing with the budget development for 24, 25. And I own this, if this was done, and if it was done unintentionally. This was by no means meant to depict that any one of these bubbles was vulnerable or being considered for reduction any more than anything else in this district, specifically the COVID funded positions. The fact that a program or a person or an initiative is funded currently through COVID funds does not mean that that's not going to be intact next year. So again, if the message received from me or Bill, I won't speak for Bill, but any of us, was that anything that's COVID funded, if there's an issue, that's gone. That's not the case. Everything's on the table, both staffing-wise, efficiency-wise. You just heard Lisa and Scott talk. There's hundreds of opportunities for shared services through BOCES. We already participate in a lot of them, but there's others that we consider. There's things that we consider not doing in BOCES if we can do it more effectively. If you notice on your blue and green sheets, if you look at those aid ratios, we're a bit of an anomaly within the BOCES. So where some districts it may be really beneficial to do things through BOCES, if it's more cost effective or more efficient for us to not do them through BOCES, we consider that. Unfortunately, I don't have any specific answers to share at this point. We're still in the development process with the team. We'll be seeing a lot of each other the next 3 weeks because it's time. So, here's your warning. So with that, any questions?
I do have one. You already answered a few. Where we are in the budget preparation process, that's still in the works. When we're expecting the state budget April 1st and 1% of the foundation and $37,000.
Right.
So thank you for all of that information. As a tangential question that I have, these numbers look very similar to last year's in terms of increases, except for the growth factor, I think is a little bit lower this year. Something that happened in the last budget went up by 4%, and you talked about this last year. My tax went down, so and my assessment hasn't changed. I know that's not the case for everybody. Is that still a possibility for this upcoming school year?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a great question. How much time do I have? So I'll try to keep this basic and quick. And if you want to come in sometime, we can spend a day on this. The only thing that you as a board, us as a team, us as a district collectively control is that levy amount, 8.3 blah, blah, blah million. You adopt a budget, we propose a budget, you adopt a budget that is a spending plan. There is a tax levy amount that we have deemed necessary for us to levy in order to meet the needs of that expenditure plan. That is voted on the third Tuesday in May. The tax roll is not even finalized until after that date. There are a whole litany of things that can change with the tax roll after that budget vote. We get this every year. I voted on a tax levy increase of X. How come my tax bill went up this amount? Or how come my tax bill only went up this amount? In this case, that 4% is only the levy increase. You're going to have a wide array of changes in individual tax bills for a couple reasons. One, we have 5 municipalities within our district, right? We have the town of Hamilton, which is a little more than half, the town of Madison, 25–30%, Lebanon, Eaton, and a real sliver of Brookfield makes up the remaining 25%. Any changes in assessments, that they're all market driven, and any one of those municipalities can swing things in the other.
So we have to be very careful because what can happen with individual tax bills can vary significantly than what the levy goes up, particularly here. Hamilton's unique in the frequency in which they reassess. It's not something you see very often. So with that, you see big fluctuations in individual tax bills. And ultimately, what we've seen in the last couple of years, our effective tax rate's gone down. So as those market-driven assessments continue to rise at a rate that exceeds the levy increases, the tax rate's actually going down, which you'd expect to see, as those assessments continue to climb. Yeah, it's a great question. It's very complicated. Bill and a neighboring superintendent, actually one within our BOCES, put a charge to myself and a corresponding business official a couple years ago to try to come up with like a one-page or like a tri-fold pamphlet answering the question you just asked. We spent a couple days on it and we just stopped. It's impossible. There's so many different factors that go into tax bills and how they're generated, so.
Yeah, I know there are a few variables. I just wasn't sure how much of that information you already had, so thanks for trying to answer.
Yeah. Very few, unfortunately. We did hear, in passing or in some presentation that I do believe in the town of Hamilton, there's the property values, if you will, or assessments are continuing to go up probably 10 or 12%. So without a reassessment, that's likely going to result in a decline in the equalization rate. So again, it's one of those things that just kind of throws things out of whack.
So with these two different proposals that look pretty positive,
yeah.
How much like net overall change? Not just, I know there's foundation, but there are a lot of other positive things in there that look good, but none of them would be very.
No, none of them are going to have a real strong impact, to the good on our budget. I mean, there are little things like the amount of a salary, a BOCE salary that's aidable, and basically keeping all of our expense-driven aids intact is a positive thing. That's something that the governor's sort of gone after, or tried to go after, and ultimately it gets reversed, so that's something we'll always advocate for. But for us, in terms of the direct impact on the 24-25 budget, it's the foundation aid.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay.
Is there another budget coffee scheduled?
No, we're going to talk about that later.
Okay.
We will get them, yeah, so I'll throw this out there so you can start thinking about it. Our next regularly scheduled board meeting is April 16th, it's a Tuesday. Monday the 29th of April is when all of our reported, mandated reporting to the state as it pertains to the budget and tax levy has to be reported. So that means by Friday the 26th, you have to adopt the budget. The 22nd to the 26th is spring break. So if the budget is not adopted at the regular meeting on the 16th, we would have to have a special meeting sometime between the 16th and the 26th. What I would suggest is, I am going to proceed as if with that April 16th date is the date. If it's not done by then, it's not done by then. We're going to have to reconvene. With that said, we would have, I'm thinking, or what I'd like you to think about is probably first week in April, multiple meetings. And hopefully by then we'll be able to share specifics, talk more about specifics what we're looking at in advance. I think that'd be helpful in advance of the 16th, or maybe a good indicator of if the 16th is going to hold true or if we need to extend it. So,
one of the difficulties we talked about in all of that is the predictability of the revenues you're going to receive from the state. It's really hard to build a budget when you don't know what you're getting from the state to build that budget upon. You can make predictions and guess, but you don't know. It might be a reduction, it might be at 1%, it might be at 2%, so it makes the budgeting process really difficult. So one of the advocacy items that we really pushed the commissioner on, and she heard and agreed with us, and she's going to push the governor, is to do some sort of timeline predictability as far as foundation aid goes. The one house, both sides have talked about allocating money, asking the governor to allocate money to do a foundation aid formula study, because it needs to be looked at and rewritten, if you will. Well, with that would be a predictability, so schools could then plan some sort of 1, 2, 3 year budgeting cycle, because right now you can't. It's just impossible. There's so many variables that are unanswered right now to build a budget upon. So hopefully the governor has been listening to the commissioner. The commissioner certainly has been listening to the superintendents across the state and trying to push changes to the governor. So we're hopeful that happens. We'll see. And both the Senate and the Assembly representatives that we met with were also in agreement with that, because they understand the difficulties that schools are in. So we will see. I don't know if you've heard any of that, if you're at your advocacy, Jen. Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
And the last extra presentation is a reading of our 2 board nominees for the MO BOCES board. They wrote in so that we would have something to read this evening on their behalf, and we'll do that before we move on to the consent agenda.
The first person is Chris Amon. I'm going to read her bio. Chris Amon attended HCS from kindergarten to 12th grade, as did her 2 sisters. Her mother taught French at HCS for many years. After Chris moved back to Hamilton, her kid attended HCS from 5th to 12th grade, graduating in 2015. While her kid was in school, Chris, a single working parent, helped with OM, soccer game bake sales, and costuming for the musicals, among other things. She has been involved in community building and has had experience on many different boards, beginning with vice president of the East End Food Co-op in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, at the time $6 million in sales annually, prior to returning to Hamilton. Chris helped to create Madison County's roller derby team and the Hamilton Area Anti-Racism Coalition. She has served on the board of the National Abolition Hall of Fame and Museum since 2018. She was a member of the Friends of the Farmers Market group, created to support the Hamilton Farmers Market. She helped to run the Poolville Winter Farmers Market until its closing during COVID. Chris is currently serving on the Hamilton Community Chest Board. Chris works for the Madison County Board of Election and also for Bridges, Madison County Council on Alcoholism, BDC, and Substance Abuse. She also sells hand-dyed yarns at the Hamilton Farmers Market and occasionally hand-churned ice creams. Chris has worked with youth in Madison County, both through Bridges and at Camp Fiver in Poolville. She has a great passion for Madison County and for the people who live here, and is excited to have the opportunity to be considered for a seat on the Madison Oneida BOCES board. The next bio I'm going to read is Travis Ames. Thanks for considering me for the Madison Oneida BOCES board. For efficiency, I'll lay out in bullet points why I feel that I'm the most qualified candidate to represent HCS and work for the continued success of BOCES. Some of the skills, qualifications, and experiences that set me apart include former BOCES student, possible future parent of a BOCES student, lifelong advocate for career and technical education, strong understanding of the many services MO BOCES offers districts and students, have attended almost all HCS board meetings over the past 10+ years, member of numerous district and board committees past and present, working respectful relationships with HCS administration and boards past and present, including past 2 BOCES superintendents, former HCS board member, problem solver and critical thinker, helped develop the HCS DEI policy and an active member in the inclusivity committee, strong knowledge and experience with school law, open meeting law, and school-related regulations, policy development, maintenance, interpretation, parliamentary procedure, school finance and BOCES budget, labor relations, facility-related subjects. I feel that I'm the candidate best able to hit the ground running. As the HCS BOCES representative, I would work closely with the board and superintendent. Thank you for your consideration, Travis Ames.
Thank you for reading those, and thank you to both of them for the time they've put in so far, and remaining as our nominees. We will move on to the consent agenda. I need a motion to approve the following consent agenda, 5.1 through 5.4, as recommended by the superintendent.
Second.
Any comments on treasurer's report, consideration of claims, transportation report, or the cafeteria report? All those in favor?
Aye.
Old business. Can I have a recommended, can I have a motion to amend the 23-24 school calendar as follows and as recommended by the superintendent? Use of an emergency closure day, snow day, to be used for Monday, April 8th, 2024, to allow students, staff, and their families to fully participate in the solar eclipse. Give back of the unused emergency closure day closure days as listed. Friday, May 24th, Tuesday, May 28th. If the district shall have to use an emergency closure day prior to the above days, the board gives the superintendent approval to amend the calendar just as needed.
I will move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Any questions?
I'm just looking for a reaction from Tinsay on that one. Make sure he's okay with it.
Yeah, thanks for sabotaging me again, guys. I really appreciate it.
Maybe we should move you to the beginning of the meeting. So that's 3 days.
Yes, so we have 5 emergency closure days built into this year's academic calendar. We've used 1, so the solar eclipse would be 2. The 2 days wrapped around Memorial Day. And then we'd be left with 1 that we'll work with, we'll hold in our pocket if we get weather or some sort of emergency. You know, last year, remember, we had to use a day because we had a bus driver shortage. So I want to keep a day in case. And if we don't, then we'll work with the HTA to find a day that we can give back.
Okay. I was just counting and my math wasn't working. That helps. Other questions? Comments? No? All those in favor?
Aye. Am I supposed to have a comment?
No,
Just making sure.
that does bring us to our community participation. First space to come forward. The Board of Education requests that the community participation be for agenda items only, but it doesn't have to be. Please remember the policy regarding participating at the board meeting. If I need to, I will read it, but I'm hoping that I don't need to, so I'm not going to. Anybody that would like to come forward can. There are no comments currently on our live stream. Brings us to new business and personnel. I need a motion to accept the resignation of Cindy Wendt, the school nurse, effective June 30th, as recommended by the superintendent, with sincere appreciation for her services rendered to the district.
Move.
Second?
Discussion would be an executive session. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I need a motion to revise the appointment of Rick Lutherahan as probationary food service helper to a permanent civil service appointment effective April 14th, as recommended by the business manager and superintendent.
Second.
Discussion would be an executive session. I'm sorry if I said your name wrong. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the volunteer coach as provided for the 23-24 school year, as recommended by the athletic director and superintendent. Approval is contingent upon completion of all required certifications and printer fingerprint clearance.
I'll move. Second.
Discussion would be an executive session. All those in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to accept the following monetary donations with sincere appreciation and to increase the budget by the amounts recommended by the business manager and superintendent.
Move.
Second?
Any discussion?
Thank you very much.
Thank you to the First Baptist Church Deacons Fund, the Hamilton Central School PTO, and the Hamilton Bible Fellowship. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I need a motion to approve the recommendations of the committees on special education and preschool special education.
I'll move.
Second.
Discussion would be an executive session. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I need a motion to approve that the selection of the Hamilton Central School nominee for the Madison Oneida Board of Cooperative Educational Services be by paper ballot in accordance to preferential voting, and that the circulation of the paper ballots be led by the district clerk.
I'll move.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
That will move us to the paper vote now. So just a moment. Please read and follow the instructions at the top of the form. Thanks. She's got to come up. When you're done, just fold it in half, and Julie will collect them. And we'll give Jody a few minutes to tally those under the supervision of Matt Crum. And of course, everybody else in the room, because we can all see them. I don't like these things with views.
That's just not true, you like them.
Do you like this?
Not like really.
But you'll eat them like I am.
You did.
Okay.
Like,
Me neither, it's almost gone.
No.
why did they give them all to everyone except me? Very rude. Did you guys not approve an extra sub because one of my friends was applying to be a sub here? I thought she got approved.
Didn't make it out of me. Didn't get it done.
That's why.
I don't know. It'll be next month.
I'm not allowed to ask about that stuff though.
Kind of.
I can, but they don't have to answer.
Thank you, Jody. Where am I? I need a motion to approve the following resolution pertaining to the nomination of the office of the member of the Board of Cooperative Education Services. The Hamilton Central School District nominates Chris Alman for the seat currently held by Michelle Jacobson for the office of member of the Madison Oneida BOCES Board of Cooperative Educational Services. With the approval of a foregoing resolution, there will be a roll call.
Mr. Chair?
Aye.
Dr. Duclos?
Aye.
Mrs. Phillips?
Aye.
Mrs. Jones?
Aye.
Mrs. Jacobson?
Aye.
Thank you.
I need a motion to approve the resolution as provided and to adopt the following transportation proposition for the submittal to the qualified voters on May 21st, 2024. And I read this? Or I do not need to? I do not need to. Yes, I love it when I don't have to read it. This approval will be, foregoing the resolution, will be a roll call vote as follows.
Mr. J?
Aye.
Dr. Duclos?
Aye.
Mrs. Phillips?
Aye.
Mrs. Jones?
Aye.
Mrs. Jacobson?
Aye.
Thank you.
I need a motion to accept the following request for the Hamilton Public Library and to submit the proposition for inclusion on the district ballot for submittal to the qualified voters on May 21st. Oops, sorry, keep going. The approval of the foregoing resolution will be a roll call vote as follows.
Mr. J?
Aye.
Dr. Duclos?
Aye.
Mrs. Phillips?
Aye.
Mrs. Jones?
Aye.
Mrs. Jacobson?
Aye.
Thank you.
I need a motion to approve the legal notice for the budget hearing, budget vote, and budget election on May 21st, 2024, and to authorize the district clerk to make technical changes as legally obligated.
I'll move.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I need a motion to approve the class of 2024 senior trip to Lake George from June 25th to 26th as recommended by the secondary principal and superintendent. This approval is contingent upon meeting all planning requirements of the administration. Please note that the Board of Education reserves the right to cancel the trip if circumstances should arise concerning the safety of the students.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I'm just most
Sounds fun.
excited
Have
for
fun.
Ms. Lehman. I think she's gonna love it.
Every year.
Every year. I'm very excited for the kids to be able to have this opportunity, so I hope everything works out.
Sounds fun.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I need a motion to approve the participation in the following combined sports program for the 23-24 school year as recommended by the athletic director and superintendent. Oh, sorry, I'll keep reading. Modified track with Morrisville Eden.
I'll move.
Second.
Tentatively 2 students at the moment. Other discussion? Thank you to Morrisville. And good luck to the students if they do plan to do that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are on to the superintendent's report. I will turn it over to Bill.
Jen, I had included in my report the one house bills, but
Saw that.
I'll,
It's all good. Matt already stole it.
okay.
You can steal it again. And I won't repeat it a third time.
Okay. Let me just share with you what they've agreed upon. Both houses have proposed restoring all safe, harmless foundation aid cuts, rejecting the proposed adjustment to the foundation aid formula's inflation calculation, providing a minimum 3% foundation aid increase for all districts, allocating $1 million to SED to study the foundation aid formula, funding universal school meals for all schools, increasing the BOCES aidable salary cap from $30K to $60K, expanding grade coverage for special services aid for CTE and non-component districts, allocating funds for prior year aid claims, increasing funding for pre-K, and excluding certain external funds from the calculation of transportation aid for zero-emission bus purchases. So both houses have agreed on those things, which is, I think, really positive. We made adjustments to our calendar tonight. Another non-adjustment, we are required to do this by school law. April 19th will be our annual emergency go-home drill. We'll push that out on Parent Square and our messaging through the district, but I just wanted to bring that up while we were talking about calendar.
And that usually is 2:30?
It's 2:30. All students have to leave campus. Any student that has extracurriculars can come back on campus at 3 o'clock. So they're dismissed and have to leave and then come back. And that's to test emergency response in case we have to evacuate students off campus. So that is April 19th. I've been reporting out, thank you to Matt and Andrea for providing these statistics. Our school lunch and breakfast numbers continue to rise since we've instituted universal lunches and breakfast. So we have gone from our lunch numbers in January, they're 280. Our breakfast lunch numbers in January were 102. We are now, these are February numbers, our lunch numbers are 290 and our breakfast numbers are 113. So they're going up incrementally, so that's good. We're feeding more students.
That's great, and I saw that students today for the half day could get lunch, I saw a litbe flatbread pizza thing to go home.
Yeah, to go home with.
Thank you, if you could thank the staff for that was really great.
For that, though, it'd be almost nice to have that notice like a day or two ahead, or like.
That we're sending?
Yeah, so that if somebody needed, like a kid might not know that they need it, a parent might, and so that they might not be able to get that in there, so might just be something that we could add the day before.
Okay. The U.S. DA Forest Service, in cooperation with the state DEC, reached out to us. They're doing an inventory of New York State forest resources. And as you know, we own, as a district, 47.5 acres on Chapel Road. It's just forest. So every 5 years, they do a forestation study, and this is the 5th year. So they asked if they could go up and inventory the trees, the wildlife. They do a whole study, which obviously we allowed them to do. That information then goes into their database. It's confidential, but the statistics from their study go into the database for the state to do studies, environmental studies on forestation and wildlife. So they reached out and we obliged for that. And that is it for me.
Thank you to the administrators for your reports that you submitted. As always, very interesting to review. Do we have any specific questions for anybody?
No, thanks for your work on this.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't have anything super specific, but something that goes along with like our One Book, One School campaign. I actually just recently found out yesterday that there's a program that a lot of areas schools participate in. It's called Battle of the Books. Has anybody heard of that?
My son participated in it at Chattanooga.
I talked to somebody from CAS, and they said it is like so amazing. They can actually go on to like a national, like regional and national level. And I was just wondering if that was something that we have ever considered or could look into, because it sounded really fun.
Who's it through, Jen? Do you know? Can you get some info?
Yeah, I'll get some info. She was saying that they have like, you can have as many teams as you want, but there can only be 6 students on a team. And either parents or teachers like coach that team, and you have to read so many books, and then you get these questions, and you have to say like, in what book was the brother mean to the sister? And they'd have to, you have a recorder, and so you have a certain, like a couple of minutes or something, and you have to get the exact title and author of the book, and then you report that out. And So the one mom that I was talking to said she has these 6 boys over at her house, and it's so great because they're like 6 like 5th grade boys, and she said sometimes they're like tumbleweeds, but they're all very like engaged and have read like 10 books or whatever this year, and it was like, she was like so ecstatic about it, and I was like, I've never heard of this, tell me more.
Okay.
So, it is.
My son really loved it.
Yeah,
He liked it because it forced him to read books that he wouldn't choose himself.
yes.
He read a couple of books, like one about a fox. I think you read that one, Heather, with the kids. The fox like goes home or something. He was crying at the end. But the ending part that you're talking about is like the old quiz bowl.
Yeah, and
Like it's very competitive. There's, like,
she
2
said it
teams,
was.
And it's, you know, it's like that old game show, like college football.
Yeah, and she said like there are a ton of like tools out there. There's already pre-made Quizlets and things like that for parents or coaches to utilize, so they're not doing a lot of it themselves. And it can expand across like elementary, middle, into high school. It's all like different levels and things like that. But it sounded, she was like so into it and ready, and I was like, oh. So,
Yeah, maybe Amy Jerome knows more.
yeah, sounds awesome, so.
Good idea.
Yeah.
That brings us to the athletic update. Was in written, and a lot of it was stated in the beginning of the meeting, so congrats again to all of the students that participated, and especially that stat you had in about the academics.
Yep, so all of our teams were Scholar athlete teams this year.
That
In the winter, the fall sports, every team was. Winter, we were there, and we're hoping that the spring will be the same.
It really says a lot about our students and the teachers and the time that they allow and, work with the students if they have to leave early for a game or something, so.
Is it still a 90 average?
Yeah.
So that means every student on that roster,
75%
75% of the
put together, you
Yeah.
guys are 90%.
had to have a 90 or above average.
It's great. That's great.
Kevin, thanks for the demographic report. We talk about those numbers all the time, but seeing it laid out like that was really helpful.
It was really helpful.
To be able to talk to people about it as well. And I don't think people understand sometimes the pressures that just put on the school that way, so.
And it's good to have that knowledge as we're making key decisions. It's just one piece of it, but it's good to have that piece of it.
Thanks.
I like to do it for fun.
And that brings Mr. Crum back to the podium.
One thing quickly, not really budget related for 24-25, but down the road certainly is electric school buses. We have engaged in a contract with the Polera company. They are recognized as an expert, if you will, to conduct a fleet study of the school district. New York State is now requiring, they still have that 2027 date in place, which school districts will have to buy exclusively electric vehicles. They intend to turn fleets over by, I think it's either 2035 or 36. There's a lot of question around that. It's coming quickly, but they're not going to lift that deadline because it's just going to impede progress. If they put the date back, people are going to stop. They're not going to be proactive in getting things done. So one of the requirements, though, as districts, is we have to show that we are pursuing this, and we have to demonstrate the progress that we're making with those deadlines. So the first step in that is to have a fleet analysis done, and that's what the Polera Group is going to do for us. They will come in, we should have it in about 8 weeks. They will come in and they will look at our current fleet of vehicles, our current routes and routing, and our current student loads, if you will, and they will analyze what we currently do and project what that would look like with EVs. They will look at the state of the charge of buses and see if, like for example, we have a midday pre-K run. What they will look at is they will look at our morning runs And then they'll look at that pre-K run and they'll tell us, you wouldn't be able to do that pre-K run with EVs with these chargers. If you had to use one of those morning buses, you'd have to have one of these chargers, that type of thing. They'll calculate the total system power that would be required. They'll do a preliminary evaluation of the existing electrical system to see if the capacity is adequate. From what I've heard from other districts that are just completing these, typically the answer is no. They will look at the requirements and the constraints for installing the new infrastructure if we were to do it on site. They will look at road conditions. They'll consider climate, so they'll consider winter versus summer, hills versus flat, looking at the topography of the district.
Does that include where we drive for things or just in our normal runs?
No, it'll be, well, primarily the regular in-district and academic runs. So like the BOCES run would be included.
But not necessarily sport
Not
runs?
athletic trips or
Okay.
anything like that, I don't believe.
Good to know.
But does that include like road, in terms of road conditions, like the bridges can support the weight of those buses?
Yep, so again, this report does qualify as sort of an expert report. So what's important for us though is this will be what, this will give us the ability to demonstrate that during the 2023-24 year, we're progressing. Shortly after this is completed, the next step will then be to go all over to the village because of the electric service from the village, and then go from there from the standpoint of power and infrastructure. We'll try to do that after July 1st, so it satisfies our 24-25, but we're on our way. Just a quick note on this. So Lisa and Scott were talking about BOCES-wide initiatives. BOCES took the lead in trying to organize an opportunity for component districts to pursue some funding through NYSERDA to have these studies done, to pay for the studies. But NYSERDA and some of the other conglomerates such as NYSERDA, NYSEG, National Grid that's offering incentives or offering grant funds, they're using, there's lists that are out there based on need, and we don't qualify. So of the 9 component districts, Hamilton and VVS were the only 2 of the 9 that didn't qualify under the NYSERDA qualifications. So we're kind of on our own for this. Even a couple of the districts that did qualify had already done this. They'd already either obtained grant funds on their own from somewhere else or were ahead of the curve. So just as a sort of show you how complicated it can get you when you're trying to collaborate. It's $5,000. I think it's going to be pretty extensive. They're doing them all over the state, so it'll be interesting to see what they come back with.
Very much so.
But we're on our way. We'll report back.
Thank you for setting that up.
Thanks.
Matt, since this analysis doesn't include like sports runs and things like that, how does that play into all of this?
Good question.
Because that going to web is a really big difference in one of our runs.
So I'll have to look into that. I don't think, they're not gonna come in and drive the trip to West Canada, right? Like, they're gonna look, they can
That's fine.
yeah, right. But I would think that they're going to know that what a key component that is for school districts. So whether that's sort of like a secondary thing that they report on, or they say, based on all of your runs, anything beyond 345 would require additional vehicles. I don't know if they do something like that. That's a good question. I could look into that.
Well, and I think of like FFA trips to like Oswegatchie and like things like that. Yeah, to Lake George. Yeah.
We have had those discussions in Albany about this, and that, your in-house runs are one thing, but when you're talking about extracurriculars to Old Forge, Poland, Renton,
Syracuse to
Syracuse,
to Syracuse Stage, right?
Those are, either that school's gonna have to have a charger, or we will have to purchase a supercharger at an additional cost. And then there's charging time that has to be factored in. So is the bus gonna have enough time to charge? Game ends, bus is not charged, is there gonna be enough charge to get you back? Like, there's so many, yeah, lots of questions.
Wait, Tim said, I've got a question, hold on.
What if you just don't even make it there, right? Cause like, what's the range on them? You push the bus, the like really heavy
Well, it
electric
depends.
bus.
It depends on what Dr. Duclos was saying. It depends on temperature, it depends on topography.
But like, the question is like, if you have a charger at the destination, you can charge it there, and I mean, it's inconvenient if you have to wait a while, but like, what happens if you don't even make it to that charger?
Yes.
You send another bus
That's the
to
problem.
hope to make it and.
But that bus has the same range.
Well, and then,
They won't have as much of a load,
Are
so.
you gonna make like a bus relay?
Right.
you know, who pays for the charging costs at the end? You know, is it the district? Is it the district of resident? Is it the district that's visiting? Like,
Wouldn't
there's
it be
just
like
think
more
of that.
cost effective to just like outsource a busing company and be like, we've got a trip to Lake George and it's too far for our electric buses?
And be like gas, like everybody pays for their own stuff.
I don't know.
So we got quotes for electric buses.
Oh.
They're probably outdated now, because I think it was around the first of the year. For a 70-passenger, full-size bus was, I think it was $456.
Oh my God.
For the 30-passenger van, we call them, you know, 30 passenger, it was $325,000.
And we just approved one 30-passenger and one suburban type vehicle,
Not to exceed 180.
not to exceed 180. I just, just to go back to that.
Yeah. So I think last year when we bought the 70, it was 160, 150. So you're talking about probably about 3 times the cost.
And what do these superchargers run?
Exactly.
Last I heard was 60,000.
60,000,
But it got
Per
bumped.
unit?
And
for
how
one
many do you
unit?
need?
one unit.
And where are they? And,
Wow.
well, thank you for, I think it's important that we're getting this started so that we can meet that deadline this summer.
Yep.
We can say that we're looking into things. Obviously, the conversation here, none of us are thrilled with the idea, but I don't think anybody across the state
I
is
don't think
super
anyone is.
thrilled about the idea. I think it's, there's reason to be more conscious and move this way in certain senses, and then there's others that, this needs a lot more research, so.
Well, we don't have to do it all at once. You can
Right.
kind of ease your way in, but going greener all the time.
Right.
Well,
I'm kind of excited about it.
This is another.
I am once we figure out the question.
All the, it'll work out, yeah.
I mean, a couple of things. One, it's going to happen.
Yes.
What, is it going to happen?
It's just a matter of when.
It's
Yeah.
5:35? No, probably not.
Right.
Well, and the whole fleet too. It would be nice if it was one bus by X and one bus by, so that,
Baby steps.
And
yeah,
it's
you
not
can
gonna
baby
stop-
step
It's
it.
not going to stop with school districts either, which,
Right.
down the road, I think will be good for us. But right now, where we're at right now, this is another prime example of where it's difficult for us to collaborate, as I was mentioning with grant funding based on the need. But we're also very unique in that we are entirely serviced by the municipal electric. Maybe that's a good thing. We don't know. We're going to find out, right, as we navigate through this. But, most of these districts are part of those conglomerate providers. So we're again, very unique. We don't really, it's never been done before. So we really don't have anything to go by. Other districts that they may have, like I know VBS, for example, one of their school buildings has municipal service, but where their bus garage does not. So you look at relocate, it's just very new.
Well, another thing that we asked in Albany is, due to the cost of these buses and the infrastructure, what if your community votes it down? It's mandated by the state, but what if the community votes it down? Then what? What do you do for transportation? And there wasn't an answer. So those are all the things that are being discussed.
Well, thank you for getting this
You're welcome. Thank you.
part started at least.
Yeah, thanks.
It's finally your turn.
It's 8:09.
Right? Not too bad.
All right, so you guys, I'm sure you've already read it, so I'm just gonna skip. I might as well just ad-lib the whole thing,
There you
because
go.
I'm just gonna skip the whole first two parts anyways. So, the first one was the April eclipse. You guys just got the recommendation to take April 8th off, which is nice, I like that. Then the other part of it was, more Colgate stuff, which I mentioned in another report a while back, that we don't really take advantage of Colgate's resources as much as we should. And I think that this is an example of us taking advantage of Colgate's resources exactly how we should. We got Joe, he works at the Viz Lab, he works at Colgate. We invited him here, he presented to you guys, now he's gonna present to the entire student body on March 25th. I mean, it's just a textbook example of doing things right. The other part, which is something that Joe has said a lot, and even said earlier today, I don't know if you heard Mr. Rogers, but he said that among all the field trips and schools that go to visit the Viz Lab, Hamilton was one of the least seen. And actually today, as part of AP Biology, we went up to Colgate and we were talking to Professor Hagos, another example of us, using our connections well. We did a whole lab with him and Dr. Myers. And a second grade field trip for Mount Markham was going to the Viz Lab. It's just like, it's another thing that we could be taking advantage of more. Like field trips to, the place that we literally walked to today versus Mount Markham had to drive quite a while and they were still, seeing the value in it. It's pretty unique that we have it right next door. So taking advantage of that more. But we're doing good. And then the second thing was outside experts. So I'll read this one. Recently, we as a school had the opportunity to learn from one of the best staff developers in the world, Cornelius Minor. If you didn't already know, he is a Brooklyn educator who visits schools across the country to help educate teachers on creating equitable spaces, updating teaching methods, and improving overall education standards. In this process, he has written several books and been featured in several magazines. After personally meeting with Cornelius and talking to several of our teachers who have spoken with him, I believe he had an extremely positive impact on our school. Last year, as part of SSAC, one of our main requests was staff development, more specifically, trying to help teachers learn more about our increasingly complicated world and students. So to see someone like Cornelius doing just that was amazing, and on behalf of SSAC and the student body, thank you. Another thing that I just learned today was during the BOCES presentation, they said that they have professional developers and stuff like that. So that's another, I think, thing we could take advantage of there. In addition to Cornelius, this year the Inclusivity Committee brought in an expert named Dr. Cones to carry out and analyze survey results about feelings of safety and belongingness within the school. After attending a meeting with her and the committee on March 6th, I can safely say that she has also played an instrumental behind-the-scenes role in our school environment. Her impact will only continue to expand as the results of her work are further implemented. However, even before most of what she has created has been introduced, she has had a major impact on the Inclusivity Committee as an organizer, expert, and outside influence. Between these two outside experts, our district has done exceptionally well in our initiative to improve our school. Both of them have already had positive impacts on our school, which will only continue to become more present as time passes. I understand that getting outside influences to come visit HCS isn't free, and spending money on non-essentials isn't something we can consider right now, but whenever there is some wiggle room for something sometime down the line, I think that continuing to hire outside experts for their behind-the-scenes organization, training, and overall knowledge is a sound way to spend money in improving our district. There was something else I wanted to add, but I forgot. So that's it.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's a great point about outside experts.
If you think of that, let us know. You can jump back in.
I'm good.
SEL report was,
I'll
do you
say
remember?
that for next time.
Go ahead.
No.
Okay. SEL report was accepted. Any questions for Bill to take back?
Can you just share with Renee how much I love the pictures? I'm so glad she includes those, because they make me smile every time I open it, and they're like at the beginning and at the end, and I just love that. So, thank you.
Elementary Steering Committee?
We met a while ago. We talked a bit about Cornelius Minor also and his work that he was doing with professional development with the teachers, and so they were kind of sharing their experiences, which sounded pretty positive. Some of them, you know, they refer to his book and how it kind of enables teachers to connect with their classrooms, and being able to, I guess the overarching principle is that they meet students where they're at instead of trying to like come down and manage the classroom. They meet students where they're at and have a better classroom management situation. Heather's not here, but also the importance of mistakes was something that one of the teachers took away from that, and just making sure that you grow from them, and he really talks about that a lot too. So that sounds like that's going really well. Mr. West talked about the Heart Health Challenge and how HCS raised about $5,000 for the Heart Association. So that was good. The biggest thing, the parents that I said I would bring, excuse me, I'm fighting off my kids' colds. There's a big concern with the parents at that meeting. They were talking a lot about concerns about SEL, how that program is going to continue as the budget progresses. And so I just said that I would mention that we talked a lot about that. They were wanting to make sure that the room is still available, and a lot of the work that has been going on continues to remain, because they see the impacts with their own children. And that was a topic of discussion. Making sure that we keep a lot of the connections that are being made and keep forward momentum in that whole program. So that's what they were talking about. And also Sergeant Fiorella, I don't know if she came in already to do the internet safety presentation, so that was another thing that was that we talked about. So that went well, I assume. Yeah, it's a good presentation. Yeah, that was great.
Thank you. And to the committee. Secondary.
So I was not able to attend that meeting, but looking at the minutes, it looked like the end. Maybe Tinsay, were you there? So you can't add anything either. But looking at the minutes, looks like we got some good feedback from students about the May Jam and Wellness Day. Some good ideas of some stuff to bring back. Some bouncy houses, it looks like, and some good ideas about the types of things in the Wellness Day that students resonated more with students. And then Mark talked about multi-tiered support services being different than RTI, and that they provide much more of the social and emotional learning aspect of those things as well. And also mentioned that we had the internet safety presentations for middle school and high school. So is there anything else that I missed there, Mark?
Bulk of the conversation was around May Jam Wellness Day and running around different ideas. You know, trying to bring May Jam back to what it used to be. You know, kids used to have bands. It used to be a lot of fair type things kids participated in. Over the years, it has slowly turned more into signing yearbooks and sitting, eating pizza and stuff. And Tinsay, another student, actually came and brought this up as well. So that kind of drove the conversations in that space. And at today's faculty meeting, we talked even more about it. And Monday, student council meets. So there's a bunch of ideas that are coming in. Mr. Jones is going to share some ideas, and I think the students have some ideas as well, to try to give May Jam a little bit more enjoyment for the students. And then, you know, Wellness Day came up again. Last year, Wellness Day, we had a lot of outside resources coming in. This year, it's going to be more of an in-house Wellness Day. And part of the reasoning behind that is, you know, next year we'll be asking those people to take a day off work and come in, and then we'll do it ourselves. So try to alternate that a little bit so we don't overtax our resources too much, and you know, hate to not that we feel it would be a burden, but put people in a situation where they do have to take off a day of work, but kind of alternate a little bit. So discussions around that are happening as well, and we have one less day to plan because we have the day right before May Jam off now. So down at Mount Major and Wallace Day a day earlier.
If it doesn't snow.
If it doesn't snow.
Well, in the early 90s, we had a dunking booth at May Jam.
So-
And
That was-
the principal was part of
Bringing
that.
That was our biggest
It's like
idea.
fantastic.
That was our best idea.
It
We're-
was fun.
It's gonna happen, and
You
you're
can
gonna
put
be
warmer
up there.
water in there.
I think that it's appropriate that they should have somebody from the board there, and Tin says that representing these two bodies,
They already basically nominated me to do that.
That would be fun.
That brings, thank you to you, Corey, for presenting, and to the committee for their work. Inclusivity Committee.
Inclusivity Committee. There are two parts to the meeting. We began with Tinsei presenting the See Something, Say Something bullying incident reporting form. Unsurprisingly, he was very great. And got a lot of feedback from the committee members. It was a good opportunity to do that, and a good opportunity to showcase that, and this is a good group to give feedback on. The bulk of the rest of the meeting was the second part of the three-part sessions with Amy Combs from the Mohawk Regional Center to continue to work towards our action plan. So the second part was the root cause analysis based on the gallery walk that we had done initially with her. This meeting was much more interactive, and Amy Combs did a fantastic job of just being able to just read the group and our district needs. So she was very accommodating. Thank you to the community, the parents who are participating in this. It's a huge hall, it's a big commitment. 3-hour sessions, we have one more coming up. Thank you to the staff that have come as well, and thank you to Bill and Mrs. Merck, and thanks to Amy Combs as well.
Thank you. Jen, what's left of an advocacy update?
I do have some stuff left.
Okay.
So I forwarded everyone the comprehensive summaries of the One House budgets that itemize all the things that Bill mentioned. Also in that email, they are doing another state budget take action. So even if you've already submitted one, they're encouraging you to send another one. So if everyone could take time to do that. And those are nice too, because if you have time, you can personalize it, but if not, just the more that they get, I think is good. They are organizing an anti-vaping lobby day on March 26th in Albany. If anyone is interested in that, let me know. I can send you the information. Unfortunately, I'm not able to attend, but I can send you all the registration if you want. Also, I'm not sure if you guys saw, but Rural Schools Association of New York State is doing at lunchtime, Tuesday at noon, they're going over like a webinar focused on the One House bills and things like that. So that's a Zoom meeting. I think I forwarded that to everyone as well. If you have not already, NISBA has sent out a resolution survey on like what your stance is on different things. It literally takes like 2 minutes to complete. If you haven't done that, if you could do that, that would be great. And then, this isn't really advocacy, but kind of pushing into that board update, just something to think about. Just wondering if we had any thoughts on the NISBA convention this year and what we're gonna do, just trying to save the dates and plan ahead and.
It's in New York City.
Yes. And I know it's a ways out, but
And
just.
it's also a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
Yes, correct. So I just wanted to kind of get that on everyone's radar, and I was booking some things and I was like, I don't know if we're going or not, so I didn't know whether to commit or not, so.
I do think that it's a useful conference.
I do too.
With it being in New York City, I don't feel the push to say we all have to go, but if we look at the prices, I do think it's actually pretty much in the same ballpark, which I always thought that it wasn't. Because of the deals that they're giving, but.
I'm interested to see, maybe if we look at some of the past programs, if there's more, if the focus shifts of the session
Towards
a
city.
lot towards city,
Hmm.
that might be,
That'd be a good thing.
That's a
might
good
be less helpful.
Because a lot of the presenting schools were kind of Western New York focused
Yeah.
before,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think.
It might be, I'll just throw it out there, it might be beneficial to go to the Rural Schools Conference this year, if it's city-focused. You know, you can use that as an option, and that's typically in Cooperstown,
Well, let's get,
just an option.
let's get the date for that, and we can discuss it maybe next meeting. We would have an extra, potentially a different board member, but we should still discuss it as a group so that it's on the table, and then that person would know as they commit to things, if they're running for the seat. And I only say it that way because the next is petitions are available for the Board of Education candidate. This year, there is one seat available. So anybody that's interested, please see Jody for more information in the district office. There is a meeting on March 19th, how to become a school board member candidate and what you need to know. Again, that's something you can talk to Jody about. When do they do?
I was just gonna say, when are petitions due?
April 22nd. Are the due dates for the petitions, so, anybody out there, please do your thing. It does bring us to participation, if anybody's interested. I don't see anybody writing online. There have been some steady watchers, so thank you to those watching. Anybody that would like to come forward. I will actually, you can stay in your seat if you'd like, but I just, interested in the things that you're planning on doing in the library with the funding that you're looking for on the petition. Like, are you guys doing a building project or any changes like that, or not this time around?
Nope, it just represents a 4% increase to what we asked for last year. It is above our tax cap, but the board has approved that. As well as the rest of our budget, it's for nothing too exciting. It only represents a $7,500 increase overall.
Okay.
And given minimum wage increases and benefits costs increasing as well, we're still operating a bit of a deficit.
I just figured it was good to be able to say that. So.
Yeah.
And you're here, so I wanted you to
Thank
be
you
able
for
to say
asking.
that we're here.
Thank you for being here.
Yes.
Anytime.
A long one.
If there's any other questions, please let me know. That's why I'm here.
Anything else for community participation? We will be going into executive session. I'm still waiting for people for community participation at the moment, but we will be going into executive session, but we will not be coming out with a vote. So there will be no online presence after executive session. So just, I like to state that ahead of time. Seeing nobody moving, can I have a motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss matters regarding employment of particular individuals?
I'll move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And we'll take a 5-minute recess.